20 years of devotion ended in cold betrayal. An heiress hidden as a humble maid was kicked out by her CEO husband. Now, she is crashing his billionaire gala to teach him the most painful lesson of his life. Landon Enterprises was on the verge of going public, and the corporate headquarters was decked out in celebration. Yet, on this joyous day, the lobby manager was screaming mercilessly at the cleaning staff. He pointed directly at Fiona, insulting her as a worthless, crazy 40-year-old maid. He threatened that no one would leave until the grueling work was finished. Fiona quietly endured the humiliation, keeping her head down as she scrubbed the floors, while she slaved away cleaning the glass and mopping the lobby alone. A fleet of luxury Rolls-Royces was speeding down the Chicago highway. The high-end convoy stood in stark contrast to her exhausting labor inside the building. Suddenly, a pair of expensive designer shoes stopped right in front of her. Leo, the executive assistant, stepped forward with deep respect. He whispered that her billionaire father's 60th birthday gala was in a few days, and the chairman had personally sent him to bring the heiress home. But Fiona turned him down immediately. She told him to leave right away because her high school son, Kevin, was coming home, and she needed to cook him dinner. However, when she rushed home and prepared a warm meal, Kevin threw a tantrum the moment he walked in. He had heard rumors at school about her job, and screamed that her being a maid made him a total laughingstock. He even cursed at her, saying she would catch a disease from scrubbing toilets all day. No matter how much Fiona tried to explain, her son slammed the door and stormed out. Before she could even process the pain, her husband of 20 years, CEO Jason Landon, walked in with a cold face. Without a single word of comfort, he slammed divorce papers onto the table. Jason looked down at her arrogantly, claiming she was completely useless. He boasted that Landon Enterprises was about to partner with the massive Apex Corporation, and he needed a glamorous high society woman by his side, not a dirty maid, holding him back. He cold-bloodedly offered her $1 million to get lost but demanded full custody of their son. Fiona looked at the papers, tears streaming down her face. She looked at him, remembering how things used to be 20 years ago when Jason was penniless, promising her a bright future. She had happily vowed to stay by his side through thick and thin. Now 20 years of pure devotion were completely thrown away. Her heart broken, Fiona wiped her tears and unlocked a secret door in their house. Behind it was a massive walk-in closet filled with luxury designer clothes. It was finally time to reclaim her title as the heiress of Apex Corporation. Jason was outside eagerly calling his new mistress, Chloe, while Fiona stood in front of her vanity mirror. Without a single hesitation, she grabbed scissors and resolutely chopped off her long hair into a sharp, powerful bob. Putting on bold makeup and a stunning red dress, she called Leo with a commanding tone, ordering him to pick her up for her official return to Apex Corporation the next day. The next morning, Fiona ran into Jason and Chloe at the Landon building. Chloe, dressed flashily in a gray dress, immediately confronted her with pure malice. Believing Fiona was trying to win Jason back after the divorce, she publicly humiliated her in the lobby, calling her a washed-up old hag. She even threatened to blacklist Fiona from every cleaning job in Chicago. Instead of stopping the abuse, Jason showed zero remorse. He coldly warned Fiona to stop embarrassing herself and not to ruin his chances of partnering with the Apex heiress. To him, his loyal wife was just a roadblock to his success. Just as the two were gloating, Leo marched in with a team of professional bodyguards. In front of the stunned crowd, they bowed deeply to Fiona and called her ma'am. Fiona's eyes were ice cold as she ordered Leo to immediately audit all Landon accounts and prepare to cut off their corporate funding completely. Jason sat in his office, completely shaken. Just then, an express package arrived at his desk containing the divorce papers, fully signed by Fiona. To his shock, she left a note stating she wanted absolutely nothing from him and was leaving empty-handed. Karma hit instantly. Jason received a panicked call from his executives stating that their capital chain had collapsed and the company was ruined. While Landon Enterprises crumbled into bankruptcy, Fiona was working non-stop at the Apex headquarters. The recent emotional trauma and exhaustion took a heavy toll, and after a wave of severe dizziness, she collapsed at her desk. Fiona woke up hours later in a private hospital suite. Her best friend, Dr. Sarah, sat by her bed with tearful eyes, gently breaking the news that they had found a brain tumor. Sarah angrily asked why she had neglected her health for so long over a worthless man, urging Fiona to fight the illness and take full control of Apex. Seeing her friend's genuine love, Fiona agreed through tears. She vowed to make her betrayers pay with whatever time she had left. Unaware of his doom, Jason was still flirting with Chloe in his office. Chloe complained that he had been acting distant lately and proudly bragged that she had secured VIP tickets to the Apex chairman's gala through her high society connections. Jason was thrilled, believing his success was guaranteed and that throwing away his maid wife was the best choice he ever made. Suddenly, a senior female executive stormed into his office and slammed a heavy file onto his desk. She berated him for being an ungrateful monster, revealing that Landon Enterprises grew from a garage startup entirely because Fiona had secretly funded him, defying her billionaire family to protect his pride. He wasn't a self-made man, he was just riding his wife's coattails. But arrogant Jason refused to believe the truth, insisting he earned everything through his own hard work. Under Leo's careful arrangements, Fiona put on a stunning custom gray gown representing supreme power. When Leo asked if they should bar Jason at the entrance of her father's gala, Fiona let out a cold laugh. She wanted him to walk right in and face true despair. The grand, golden ballroom was filled with elite guests as Jason and Chloe arrived. Chloe looked over and spotted Fiona looking radiant and powerful. Furious with jealousy, Chloe tried to mock her as a low-class street cleaner trying to sneak in. Fiona calmly smiled and set a trap, asking, "If you are the heiress's best friend, what is her name?" Chloe froze completely, unable to answer, and quickly hurried away. Their son, Kevin, also arrived at the gala, brown-nosed Chloe to stay in her favor. Grand music echoed through the hall as the ceremony officially began. The host took the stage and announced the retirement of the chairman, Jonathan, declaring that his only daughter would take full control of the empire. To thunderous applause, Fiona stepped into the center of the room, looking fierce and majestic. The moment Jason, Kevin, and Chloe saw her face, their jaws dropped in absolute shock. Chloe lost her mind and ran up, screaming hysterically that Fiona was a fake heiress and a lying maid, demanding security throw her out. Jason, desperate to save his fragile pride, chimed in, shouting that his ex-wife had gone completely insane. Chloe kept yelling for Fiona to call the real heiress, lying that her own phone was dead. Fiona grabbed Chloe's phone and flipped it around, showing 80% battery and exposing her pathetic lie. The wealthy investors and Chloe's father Frank rushed over. Frank tried to defend his daughter and barked at Fiona, but Leo and the host snapped back, reprimanding Frank for his disrespect and announcing that his business was just a bankrupt, third-rate firm. Amidst the collective shock, Fiona made her announcement. Apex Corporation was cutting all ties with Landon Enterprises, and she was officially ending her 20-year history with Jason. Frank was terrified of losing his livelihood, so he aggressively pulled Chloe back and forced her to beg for mercy. Jason and Kevin finally realized the horrific truth and dropped to their knees, weeping and begging Fiona for forgiveness. But Fiona's eyes were filled with pure cold indifference. She walked away, escorted by her elite security team, leaving the father and son to drown in the ruins of their lives. In the ballroom, Jason crawled toward Jonathan, trying to shake his hand. Jonathan ignored him completely and walked straight to his daughter, gently scolding her for hiding her illness. He took her hand to bring her home, abruptly calling off the rest of the gala. Jason tried to block them, claiming Jonathan was stealing his wife, but Jonathan snapped back, asking if they were already divorced. Jason blamed Fiona, saying she couldn't keep up with his success. Jonathan shut him down instantly with furious words, revealing that Fiona only suffered to protect his fragile ego. Jonathan then made a final decree to the entire room: "Anyone who does business with Landon is an enemy of our family." With that, he escorted Fiona out. Outside, Fiona leaned against the wall with a splitting headache, and Jonathan rushed her straight to the emergency room. Hours later, the surgeon stepped out announcing the procedure was a success and the tumor was entirely removed. 2 weeks later, Fiona was recovering at a clinic when she ran into Jason and Chloe. Chloe blamed her for destroying their families and reputations, but Fiona calmly replied that they brought this entirely upon themselves. Chloe mocked her, saying she was nothing without her father and was practically dying anyway. Fiona dialed the hospital director, Director Lewis, to have them removed. The two laughed, thinking she was bluffing, and Chloe called security herself. Instead, Director Lewis arrived and scolded the guards immediately. Chloe tried to act friendly, but Lewis ignored her completely, bowed to Fiona, and ordered the guards to throw the couple out. As they were dragged out, Lewis pulled Fiona aside, revealing Chloe was 2 months pregnant. Fiona realized the cheating started long before the divorce and went to see her father. In his office, Fiona hugged her father tightly, thanking him for his love. Jonathan held his daughter close, comforting her. Fiona noted that Jason still held legal custody of Kevin. Jonathan decided to host a private family banquet in 3 days to officially introduce her. Meanwhile, the bank foreclosed on Jason's mansion. Jason received call after call about partners pulling out as his company collapsed. Kevin blamed Chloe for ruining his family, and the two had a massive fight. A courier delivered an invitation from Apex Corporation, requesting Jason and Kevin's presence at the banquet. Chloe foolishly guessed that Apex wanted to fix ties, or that the hidden heiress had a crush on Kevin. 3 days later, Jason, Chloe, and Kevin arrived at the banquet. Jason tried to ask Leo who the heiress was, and Chloe muttered, "As long as it is not Fiona." Right then, Fiona walked in wearing a stunning designer gown. Kevin stared in disbelief, asking if his mom was really the Apex heiress. Fiona stepped up to the microphone, confirming her identity, and demanded that Jason immediately hand over Kevin's custody. Jason and Chloe screamed that she was a fraud, and the guests doubted her. Fiona calmly pulled out her phone and called her legal team. As Jason kept shouting, Chairman Jonathan entered surrounded by security. Jonathan announced her official return to high society, and the guards chanted in unison, "Welcome home, ma'am." Jason demanded to know why she lied to him for 20 years, and Fiona replied that she did it to protect his fragile pride. Jonathan passed the entire inheritance to Fiona, sealing it with the family ring. He produced the new custody agreement, and under immense pressure, Jason finally signed the papers. Kevin walked over to his mother while Jason and Chloe left in despair. With his business completely ruined, Jason held Kevin's hand, begging for forgiveness and still desperately trying to keep custody. But Fiona stepped forward in a sharp black dress, cutting him off completely. Kevin tried to plead for his dad, begging his mom to take him back. Fiona scoffed, reminding him of her past naivety. She had slaved away for him for 20 years, only to be betrayed, making it clear that a penniless man had nothing to offer their son. Knowing he lost, Jason signed the papers and handed Kevin over. But as he stumbled out the front door, his chest tightened, and he collapsed to the ground, spitting blood in agony. Later, Jason lay weak in a hospital bed when Chloe strutted into the room wearing high heels. She showed zero sympathy and coldly told him she had lost the baby. Then she demanded he crawl back to Fiona for forgiveness so they could steal Apex's billions through Kevin. Even though Jason was a broken man, he had one final boundary: he refused to use his own son as a pawn for money. Chloe cursed him out, calling him a useless loser, and mocked him for being blind for 20 years, never realizing Fiona was the true billionaire heiress. She stormed out, and the doctor entered with a grim warning. His heart condition was fatal without immediate surgery, and he had very little time left. Jason was consumed by absolute regret. Kevin rushed to the hospital, and Jason wept bitterly holding his hand, admitting this was his karma for letting such a good wife go. All he wanted now was a final chance to apologize to her face. Hoping to grant his dad's last wish, Kevin stopped Fiona outside her office. Faced with his mother's cold anger, Kevin cried and pleaded, saying his father was dying and just wanted closure. Fiona felt a profound shockwave through her heart. In the quiet room, Jason assumed he would die unforgiven, but he looked up to see Fiona actually walking through the door. He broke down in tears while Fiona stood firm, hiding her sympathy, making it clear she was only there for Kevin's sake. Kevin quietly stepped out to buy drinks, leaving them alone. Jason sobbed, apologizing deeply to his wife, hating himself for being a selfish jerk and hurting her so deeply. Fiona looked at him with mixed emotions, saying the past was the past. She promised to fund his surgery, but his survival was up to fate. She made it clear that this would be their very last meeting. As she turned to leave, Jason dragged himself out of bed and dropped to his knees on the floor, weeping. But Fiona cut right through his drama with one question: Jason, if I weren't the CEO of Apex, would you be on your knees right now? With that, she walked out into the hallway, leaving him sobbing alone on the cold floor. Meanwhile, Chloe's father confronted her in absolute rage. Their family company was completely ruined after being blacklisted by Apex. They blamed each other, but with all their assets frozen, her father told her she was moving abroad to wash dishes for a living. Spoiled and entitled, Chloe couldn't handle the thought of real labor and screamed, throwing a massive fit. She directed all her burning hatred at Fiona, swearing she would get her revenge no matter what. 5 days later, Fiona was out with Kevin when he went to use the restroom. Suddenly, a man in a flashy shirt ambushed Kevin from behind, drugged him, and forced him into the back of a van. Fiona finished her call, turned around, and caught a glimpse of the van. Panicking instantly, she called Leo, ordering him to track the location within 10 minutes. She also called Jason, furious, assuming he was trying to steal their son back. Minutes later, Leo tracked the vehicle to an abandoned warehouse downtown. Fiona and her security team rushed straight to the rooftop. There was Chloe, holding Kevin over the edge as a hostage, screaming that she didn't want money. She demanded the entirety of Apex Corporation. To save her son, Fiona agreed to hand it over without hesitation. Paranoid and frantic, Chloe demanded the signed transfer papers immediately, but the moment Leo stepped forward to hand over the papers, Chloe realized the contract was a fake. Losing her mind, Chloe pulled a knife and lunged straight at Fiona's chest with pure rage. Out of nowhere, Jason sprinted forward at the last second, throwing his own body directly in front of Fiona. The blade plunged into his stomach, blood soaking through his clothes. The guards tackled Chloe instantly, subduing her. Fiona and Kevin held a bleeding Jason, sobbing uncontrollably. Furious, Fiona handed Chloe over to the police to face heavy charges. Frank rushed over, begging for mercy on his knees, and aggressively forced Chloe to apologize. But Chloe remained unrepentant as she was locked up, while Jason was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. Jason survived the intense surgery and was moved to a VIP suite. Jonathan arrived at the hospital shortly after, looking down at Jason coldly and forbidding him from calling him dad. He expressed his deep sorrow over how Fiona had sacrificed everything to marry him, only to suffer in his home. Finally, Jonathan gave him a stern warning: if Fiona ever got hurt again, he would ruin him permanently. Jason hung his head in deep shame, crying that he finally understood. The old man sighed, told him to move on, and walked out. Jason lay there silently, staring blankly at the ceiling. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with a text from Fiona, asking to meet at a coffee shop the next day. The next day, they sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. Fiona sipped her coffee and spoke calmly, admitting she had briefly thought about getting back together. But the nightmares of him parading his mistress around her face brought back a level of pain that she was too terrified to face. Jason lowered his head, fully respecting her choice, and thanked her for showing him what a monster he had been. She assured him he could see Kevin anytime, but full custody was gone. She grabbed her bag and walked away, ending their past once and for all. In the end, under the bright sun at the plaza, Fiona, Kevin, and Jonathan stood together to say goodbye. Fiona told her dad to take care of himself, as she was taking Kevin on a world trip before taking over the firm. Jonathan smiled warmly, telling Kevin to look after his mother. Kevin joked that he wanted a major promotion when they got back, saying he was eager to run the boardroom himself. Fiona laughed and teased her son, telling him he wouldn't get near the company until he turned 30. The three of them laughed and hugged tightly as their beautiful new chapter finally began.